All right, YouTube. So, part two, this is the installation of the clam tilt kit. So, from the last part, I got the clam off, took the interior part, got the clam off, and got it set down on the other side of the garage. So, I cleaned up a little bit and decided to just tape the shims where they came out from, just so I don't lose them or get them out of order. I'm not quite sure if the shims have any specific measurements, but like this front one has two thicker ones and one thinner one. That has 4 shims. That has 4 shims, and this has 4 shims, 3 and one small one. So there seems to be a difference between this side and this side. And then these two back ones seems to match. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep that in there. There's a Radium Engineering makes a kit that has like a shim that bolts down and looks nice, but I think they're all the same sizes. So that's something I can do later with the clam kit installed. So gonna reuse those for now. So what I did is I cleaned up a little bit and I started detaching. Like there was a bracket here that unfortunately no zip tie, so I had to drill a rivet out. So I'm going to clean that up and then just start cutting all the zip ties. So right now this is a positive and negative size. So right now it's hanging down. So I actually got to fish through. Luckily I have a lift, so I'm going to lift this up and then go underneath and then fish that through. I found out that the battery I got is actually not a normal, like a 625. So this unfortunately the length is longer than this. So unless I want to cut this, I think I'm just gonna order a PC 625. So gotta wait a little bit. So there's a couple things to do. Also, I'm gonna redo something with this charcoal canister right now. I think from the supercharger install, it's just kind of hang down here. There's a bolt right here, so I don't know if I can just kind of bolt that to that. Seems to be what it should be. In any case, maybe tidy this up. There's a couple things like hanging from previous owner. I think supercharger install. Not sure if he took the clam off, and maybe that's why some of these are easier done with the clam on. And also got to remove this, but I'm going to do one thing at a time. I'm going to finish up on the battery tray install. I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to go ahead and start lifting this. So making sure everything's clear. Yep. So go ahead and start. Okay, and actually I don't need it up all the way, so I'm gonna engage it down. Okay. I don't so I kind of mark where I need to go. This is the highest this car should go on. There's 2 more rungs, but I don't have enough ceiling space, so I don't need to go up all the way. In fact, I think I'm gonna be reaching if I go up all the way. So yeah, looks like there's quite a jungle of stuff in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start figuring out where that positive and negative cable need to come down. But yeah, let me figure that out, and I'm gonna try to get it all the way over to this side. So, all right. So I got everything basically pushed down and then like hanging down, and then basically routed it kind of alongside one of the oil cooler lines. It has the cable comes out and like tees off right here, so you can't actually pull it more than this. So I routed it behind the motor mount, plenty of room back there, and then up through kind of next to the oil pan. I'm going to secure it to like one of the lines or even this brace, and then I just pushed it up there. It looks like there's plenty of room to go up there, right there. So I'm going to kind of zip tie everything securely right now, and then maybe come back and adjust some zip ties later. So I just want to get everything from down here done so then I can work on the top there. So all right, let me get some zip ties on this. All right, continuing on, lowered the car. So you can see I took the charcoal canister off, so this is where the cables end up pretty tight, but there's some room. Next thing I got to do is snip these. There's a zip tie there, so this retainer does not stay with the car, so you end up removing this ring off, and think you end up taking this apart and then installing it on the clam, so that it floats with the clam. So unfortunately, if I spill some, which I usually don't, it'll just kind of stay in right here, but you can take the clam off and clean it up. So gonna go ahead and see what they tell you to do with this. Unfortunately, it goes down there, so I might have to actually lift the car up and take that one apart again. But, all right, let me go see what they say to do. All right, so it was just kind of held down there with one zip tie, so I just reached down there and snipped it off. So the next thing you do is you remove, let's see, this spill cup from the retainer ring. So they say take off the 4 screws and then basically wedge it loose. So pretty easy to do that. I'm not going to install the spill cup back in there, or if I do, I might, because it kind of floats in the air, I think. So if I do, I might just do a shorter hose, but I can always do that later. So I'm going to not install it back for now. So another thing that I've learned with this car is it uses posi drive screws. So you can see it's got the not quite a normal Phillips. So I got the Wearer kit. So these gold ones are posi screws, and then obviously they have the normal ones. So I've had to strip off a lot of these before I learned that they actually use posi drive screws. Anyways, just something I picked this set up just for that. All right, so got it loose. So this is what it looks like. There's the captive nuts in here, and then the other side. So basically we're gonna hold off, but this is gonna install on the clam itself. All right, next I'm gonna install the battery tray. I'm not quite doing it in the same order, just because there's some orders that I don't quite want to do yet, like trim the fender liners. So the battery tray sits right over these 2 bolts. There's 2 holes right there, and in fact they show like a countersunk bit for one of them. This one in the installation details also I think uses the existing bolt. So first off, I got to remove both of them, and these are 8mm bits. Let's see if they come out pretty easy. So there's a washer underneath, which I don't think this one gets transferred. Let's go look at the picture. So Yeah. Picture shows a countersunk bolt right there, but this one, it's got to come out anyways, but the hole on the battery tray is not countersunk for that one. So I might see how this is and just reuse that one. But okay, there's washers here, which I don't think get reused, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove this one. Picture doesn't show a washer underneath them, so I'm gonna put the one I know, and that's red, right? There's like 2 and a black button. So yeah, 2 and a black button. So I'm gonna need 2 hands to wiggle this in between there. All right, I figured it'd be easier if I disassemble it, so I can just slide it over like so. And it fits beautifully in there. Okay. The throttle cable is coming up right there, but it fits, so gotta give it some pressure, but the holes line up, so I'm gonna need both hands for this one. Put that first bolt in. All right, decided not to use a countersunk bit there, or bolt there, because why would you do that when it's not countersunk? So, like I said, I'm gonna order a battery, so I'm just gonna leave that there for now, and just gonna leave these loose. Looks like they'll reach just fine, and there's some room there underneath there. Not gonna come in contact with the pulley. Going to see if I should run some kind of battery disconnect. I have the old Sector 111, or sorry, Inokinetic battery kit that goes in the trunk. Obviously that one is kind of mounted to it, so I might as well sell that one and just come up with some other method of doing that. Also, gonna leave it to the end, gonna see what I can do with the some sort of bracket for this evap canister. So all in all, done with the battery part, so I'm going to go on to maybe installing the rear delete panel and the hinges, and I'm going to kind of work the parts I have till they disappear, and then start, working on the pile of parts getting put back together last. All right, so next we're going to do, I'm just going to start with the big pieces down to the small pieces. So next thing to do is I'm going to do this rear panel eliminator kit. Looks like it uses this same exhaust point. Reading the instructions, they kind of give the order that it needs to go into. So it looks like it basically goes in right there between the rubber and the frame. So that's going to be pretty easy to do. I'm just going to loosen that and wedge it in and then put the bolts back up. All right, that panel went on pretty well. So luckily it misses all the exhaust and tow hook and all that. So we had to change this. Obviously the other one was mounted to the clam, the rear panel delete. So this one mounts to the frame. So when you tilt it, the license plate and the support and diffuser stays on the frame. So the next thing we're going to do is I cut the zip ties on this. We're going to mount these. Goes right there. And it uses these countersunk bolts that come with the kit. So I got 4 of them in here. So it looks just like a bolt-on affair. And then they said to cut the zip ties to get to those, and then afterwards basically collapse it back up again. So I'm going to mount those right now. Hi YouTube, sort of started working and kind of lost track of time, and realized I didn't take some videos of some previous parts. So these mounted fine with the 2 counterhead bolts here. You have to let this off so you can get access to that. And then after I was done, I pushed it back down and I zip tied it in place. There is a little spring in here, so it is spring loaded and it wants to come out. So got those mounted and zip tied down. So yeah, this one is fighting a little bit. I don't quite have the zip tie as tight. So I started trimming the fender liner, which is one of the earlier steps in the BOE instruction. It's kind of tedious and not a good way to video it, so I just wanted to show the finished product. So this is what it looks like. So you can kind of see what got removed. So this part goes on the clam. So this part kind of moves up and down, and this part stays with it. They say to reuse the old weather strip, and it doesn't quite fit quite well around the corners. Like you kind of cut and bend it, but then it kind of pops out. So I think I'm gonna get new weather strips. So this is the old weather strip. So I might get something like it, and maybe a little bit pliable. One thing they ask you to do is drill a hole right here, and that's because there was the ABS wire that was tied to that hole, so they end up asking you to remove that. And actually, I might zip tie it to another hole here, and then secure this inner side of the fender liner through that. There's an existing hole right here. This part, there was already a kind of a curve here. They asked you to elongate it, and I'm guessing is to they put a nut, one of the thumb screws, sorry, right here. So it's probably to access that one right here. And I assume this one doesn't get used. So that's one of the 10 points. Although when I see videos, I don't see people reaching in and undoing that as much. Because I believe once you have your wheel installed, it's kind of hard to get in there and undo that. But that's the relief cut for it. So other than that, I already had one of these holes. I already had a bolt through it, and if you go back and look at my previous videos, and that's one of the holes that I used to install this tow hook, because it goes through there. So I just have a nut on the other side and a nut on this side. So it's kind of flappy, but I think with the weather strip, once you have the clam on, it kind of gets all pushed in there. So that's where I'm at right now. Oh, and then you install these back with. I didn't quite like the factory ones broke, so I found a good push. What do you call those? Little push pin, plastic push pin that fits nice and snug. So I got that in there. So that is what I did, and all I got to do now is repeat it on the other side. Luckily, I think I'm gonna try to just like use this as a mirror it and try to get it like exactly the same. I did save the piece that came off the other side. So if you can imagine, this used to be right there. So cut off a chunk. So I'm gonna go transpose this on the other piece so it gets out the exact cut. Anyways, that's where I'm at. Kind of just busy work, getting stuff on it. There's not a lot of parts left. So there's this inside bracket that goes on the clam. There's these thumb screws don't get installed till later. And then there's a support panel that goes on the lid. So I'm not going to install that till later. So yep, we're just chugging along. All right, got both fenders mounted here. So next thing I'm doing is trimming this interior piece. This interior piece goes right up here like that. So trim the edge here. Don't know if this is enough. I just kind of did what the illustrations look like on the instructions. And then they say to cut the relief hole right here. So this side I haven't cut yet. So and what I'm doing is I'm basically using some razor blades and just slowly working at it. It's like a foam. high density foam, and this side is also like a foam material, but it might be like a cover. But yeah, just working on that. Cleaned up a little bit, vacuumed, cleaned out. I got these installed. I use well nuts for these holes instead of the push pins. Just tired of kind of creaks and rattle back there. I'll see how good that holds. So the next thing is I don't have help to put the clam on till later. I think I'm ready to put the clam on. And then there's a lot of knickknacks that so a lot of knickknacks I need to do before I can do while the clam is off still. There's the male end of the other side. I can kind of take the wires for the tail lights off the clam, get that ready. I decide to fish my third brake light out, and I'm going to extend it and make sure that goes up the clam so I can have a third brake light. There's the weather stripping came in, so I have a few side scoop things I need to do. I decided that this is a little too flimsy for me, so I'm gonna I got some aluminum strips that I'm gonna reinforce this a bit so it's just not just flapping like that. I talked about a couple replacement hoses. This one I got cut short, and then the next thing is my battery came in, so I just put it on the charger there till I'm ready. So basically I'm just gonna do all those stuff. I'll show you the final product, and then the next big thing would be getting the clam on here, drilling these holes, and finally having a tilting clam. I might as well. I think I'm ready to put the back panel on. There's nothing else I need here. I already got everything accomplished here. So I'm gonna put the back panel on. I have speakers that I'm gonna put on. So I'm just gonna spend this time to do all these little items that I need to do eventually. All right, YouTube. Lots of change. Did a lot of work. Was unable to get it on video. I was basically rushing because a friend of mine was coming over, and I had to button a bunch of stuff up. But as you can see, the clam is on. The hinge is on. Picking up from the last video, nothing exotic about putting the back together. I basically upgraded to 6.5 inch. So the existing hole I had to kind of wallow out a little bit, install that. Got that back together. Got the center console back together. Just kind of reverse of that. Had to adjust the cables a little bit, but it seems to be working fine. And if you notice, I changed the gauge pod. I used to have a vertical one. Didn't really like the way that looked, so right now I just have this. I'm not sure who made this. I bought this off eBay. It came off a used kit. Somebody. I could not find the brand, but it is kind of a little pod. And as you can see, I kind of wired everything back there, so all the wires kind of travel through the tunnel, go up there, and then come back. So when you're sitting here, you can't see any wires. So going back to what I did, I got the side pods mounted. The only modification I had to do was that I had to cut this bracket, because this bracket used to connect to the first hole on the fender. And obviously that can't work with the clam sliding down here. So I had to cut one of the ears off, but it seems to be working fine. Like it's maybe not as stable, but doesn't really move. The bottom is just, again, friction fit, so I kind of had to tweak that bracket down there. And you know what? It works. The clam comes down. This little trim obviously now is in two pieces. It used to connect to one piece, and it seems to come down fine. The gap seems fine. As you can see, yeah, so there used to be, the bracket used to connect to one of those, the top hole, but that is no longer being used. Exercising the clam, I end up having to cut this off, because when I was tilting the clam, this would rub up here. So I had to cut more than what the instructions ended up saying. But now that I got that cut, there's no interference there. Let me show you what I end up doing with the battery box. So got the battery mounted. My cables didn't quite reach. My negative cable reached fine because the negative terminal's closer. So that's quite a bit of pull to get that, and hooked up. The positive cable was not gonna work. So I end up connecting it to a disconnect switch right there. And then I had a disconnect switch come up to the positive cable. Now, unfortunately I only had a black cable. I had to reuse the one in the kit. So ideally I'd have a red one, but I didn't have one on hand. I slid a little bit of a piece of like a hose there to kind of keep it away from the AC hose. And then I have I use this NOCO to do a trickle charge. So I was hoping that I can reach in and do a disconnect. And I might be able to with the clam down, but this is one of the things where you gotta have the clam up and you can disconnect that cable. The charcoal canister is mounted right here. And strangely enough, the bracket was existing. Like somebody made this bracket, but it was just kind of zip tied. So I didn't actually have to modify this bracket at all. So I wonder if one of the previous owners made this bracket and installed it, and then later on somebody did some work to it and then just kind of threw it in here. But now it's mounted pretty secure. And the clam comes down and it just kind of sits like in this area. So it doesn't hit or anything. And all the evap canister hoses, I had to get a new one. So I end up mounting I think this is some sort of air pump here. Just did a little bent bracket. There's already a hole here on this frame mount. So I just put a bolt and nut through him. And basically elongated these two lines and just gonna house them right there. So pretty happy with how all that turned out. This one I kind of did a loop. Maybe I should have did like an elbow and then another elbow, but I looped it pretty far because I didn't want a kink in it. So I just made sure that there's no kink in it. So everything seems secure. So, and then I got the rear mounted up. There's a kit, and the kit comes with this, I'm gonna call it reinforcement. This kind of sandwiches, put pressure on the clam right here. So that's all secured. I try to adjust the hood, or sorry, the I don't know, hood, not trunk, but hood a bit, but it closes and then it comes down on my little quick latch, and it seems to be centered. Another thing that I personally add was I added a little channel right here. There is existing holes, so I added a channel, which I have a nut and bolt through them. And that's because when I was working the clam, I was always grabbing right here, and it was kind of flexing. So I just want to make sure that I wasn't going to break anything over there. So I end up adding that. It's a lot more stable now. I can kind of pull up on it without being afraid of it breaking. So after that, I had a friend come over, help me put the clam on, and we drilled these holes. Get everything set right. We drilled these holes and mount the back plate on the inside. If I had to do it again, I don't know, take this insulation off. It was hard to figure out how much
torque to put on these because the insulation started crushing, and then we were, still having the bolt wasn't really tight, but I think we got it to a point where it doesn't really flex and it's kind of a medium, but it doesn't wobble or anything like that. And so the next thing we did was we tried to put the clam up and down like instructed. So ran into some problems right away. This was not trimmed enough, so I ended up trimming a 1/4 inch off more, and it basically was getting stuck on here. So this lip up here was getting stuck on there, and so the first time it was quite a bit of noise popping this off. So end up trimming that. Basically got a nice sharp blade, and then just kind of use that as a backstop and just trim this off. And now it doesn't get stuck. And then the next thing we did is we kind of practiced a bunch. So now I think we got it pretty down to being correct. I had to bend the tip of that rear tow bar down a little bit. It was catching that. Now these are different brands, of course. That's the Inokinetic rear tow bar. BOE sells one. That one actually might work, but I'm not sure if that works with the exhaust. So in any case, I just kind of bent the tip down so it doesn't come in contact. At one point we were thinking about shortening this so the clam doesn't quite sit as far in. You can see that gap. But there's a point where I was afraid that it was going to be unstable and kind of come down. So we ended up deciding to keep the cable the same and then just bending that. Worst case, if we got to tow it, I don't think it will yank that straight. It will just have a little lip at the end there. So let's go talk about what we did with the trunk wiring. So cleaned up the wires in the trunk, kind of ended up putting a lot of zip ties together. I can show you, but let me see, it's a little hard to, okay. So I gotta hold this on. So end up kind of zip tying it to the back, so you can't really see it, and keeping the trunk floor clean. That way, when you tilt it, it wasn't gonna be all in there and look untidy. I had to de-pin one of the connectors out of the trunk. I had to de-pin that connector because we fished it out through this small hole. So had to get a little jeweler's screwdriver, de-pin all those, and put them back out, and then pin them back, and then make the connector on this side. So with everything in there, they just had enough room to make this work. And I ended up extending the third brake light. So right now the third brake light goes into the same hole there. It's that purple and black. It comes out the existing holes that all this stuff used to come out of. And then I just have it traveling up here and then connecting back up. So should have full use of third brake light. We'll check all that together. Mount the fuel door flap on. As you can see, there's no cup, no spill cup attached anymore. So when we open that, be careful about getting fuel in so we don't spill a bunch of fuel down there. Other than that, we just kind of tidied things around and did some practice. Right now, the main thing I need to practice is when you lower this clam down, you have to do it in such a way, the motions that they describe. But if you don't do it well, the ears here on each side end up right behind here versus right in front. So and then if you try to close it, you'll end up having it on the wrong side. So we got to do a little bit more practice. I
we were able to successfully do it a couple times, but I do want somebody to be here watching it when I try it again. So right now, when I put the clam down, I basically put a little piece of wood here, and then that way I'm not forcing the ears into these. I mean, one kind of got scratched up, but it wasn't bad. I just didn't want to really push it. So things left to do. Need to work on figuring out the washer bottle, or if I'm going to run the washer bottle at all. Right now, it kind of sits right here. There's the connectors to it. So I don't really want it to sit right there and have to take it off every time. There's kind of a space right here that I can put it on. I also maybe want a smaller bottle. There's also like space right here. So for right now, I'm just gonna disconnect it and try to figure that out. And then after that, I'm gonna get the seats in. I was kind of thinking about the harness bar, whether I should put it in or not. I decided not to put the harness back in because they're expired, and I don't really track this car. And if I do, I think I want a non-expired harness, and maybe not a 4-point harness. Although that one I think is the correct one to use if you have to use a 4-point. But since I'm not going to put the harness in, kind of wondering if it's worth putting the harness bar in, because the harness bar kind of impedes a lot of access to right here. The harness bar kind of comes down and then over. So I think if I don't put the harness bar, I might be able to store the soft top in here. So that's kind of one thing. And I guess if I change my mind later, it's not like you got to take everything out. You can probably fish it back in. So I think that's what I'm going to do next is clean everything up and get the seats back in. I do have front speakers. So the old speakers that came out, they'll Blaupunk. I mean, they work okay. I think people upgrade them. So I just thought I'd upgrade them, and I thought I should match the front. So I got new front speakers coming. And other than that, I don't have a lot left. I think I'm gonna. One thing I did do is these frame plugs. I made a plug. I'm 3D printing it right now out of PETG. So I'm gonna have plugs there and plugs here. Kind of clean that off. And then these shims look kind of ugly, so I'm printing that off next. And I'm hoping that if I print them off in like a black plastic PETG, because I think I need to see if that can take the heat, I can just kind of glue them down, because right now they are just kind of sitting there. They line up fine, they hold fine, but that duct tape looks unsightly. Yeah, other than that, I'm kind of wrapping up. I think the last video I'll do in the series is going to be just me showing how this whole thing works, and wrap that up. But thank you for watching. I'll go ahead and not show us putting the seat in. That's fairly easy, just 4 bolts, but that's going to be done with the install minus the washer bottle, which I'm not too urgent about putting that in. All right, well, thank you everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.